Welcome to Tiger Media Network's Area Game of the Week preview show. I'm Eli Blankinship. Last week we got to visit Ellis, Kansas, just down the road here from Hayes, and they took on the Quinter Bulldogs last week in a very important district matchup. And boy, it was a fun one. It was very competitive from start to finish, and it was a really fun one to call. A big thank you to the Ellis community for hosting us. Here is that recap brought to you by Parker Nisbeth.
Live from Railers Country, it's the Railers and the Bulldogs going head-to-head in a district clash you won't want to miss. Easton Blackwell, the young freshman quarterback, leading the charge for the Bulldogs, and on the other side of the football, the Sharts brothers, the dynamic duo trying to get things done for the Railers. I'm Eli Blankinship, and you're watching Tiger Media Network's Area Game of the Week.
Let's go lay some dudes out, and let's go! Right defense! Here!
5:40 left to play here in the first quarter. Sharts, keeper to the outside. Jukes back into the middle. One more man misses, and it's a touchdown for the Railers. They open up the scoring on homecoming. An I formation from the Railers. Keeper to the outside with a blocker in front of him. Still no one near it, and it's a touchdown for the Railers. Blackwell, handoff. Makes another man miss, finds the gap with a burst of speed to the outside. Coltworth struck down, and a big gain for the Bulldogs. He's brought down just past the Railers' 15-yard line. Two backs in the backfield. Handoff, goes to Ruff. Ruff makes a man miss with a stiff arm into the goal line. Bulldogs are back on the scoreboard. Blackwell, play action, fires it downfield. He's got his man. Touchdown Bulldogs. K.O. Hargan punches it in for 6. Sharts back to throw it, empty backfield. Under pressure, looking downfield, pump fake, it's caught. Complete to number 4, Aiden Aschenbrenner. Sharts, shotgun formation, empty backfield, drops back to throw it. Looks to his left, going through his progressions, scrambles out to the right, under pressure, wrapped up and brought down. Big tackle for Caden Thomas. On to his left in the backfield. Rolls out to his left, intercepted! Are you kidding me? The Bulldogs have the football, picked off by Easton Blackwell. Empty backfield, 2 receivers to both sides, drops back to throw it under pressure. Rolling out to his left, fires it in the middle of the field, it's caught. With the man to his left in the backfield. Pitches it off to Ruff. Ruff running up the middle, no one in front of him, green grass, touchdown Bulldogs. Back to throw it is Blackwell. Blackwell rolls out to the right, running through his progressions. Keeper right up the middle. Does he have enough? He does! 2-point conversion is good for the Bulldogs. It's a 10-point ball game for Quinter. 4:45 left to play now. 1st and 10. Drops back to throw it. Sharts going through his progressions under pressure. Rolls out to his left, fires it to the middle of the field. Is it Bulldogs football? It is! The Bulldogs pick it off.
Once again, a big thank you to Parker Nisbeth for putting together that recap for us. It's really awesome to get to see all the different calls and different big impact plays throughout the weeks that we have, and it's always kind of a nice little round off to a wonderful area game of the week. Well, the Bulldogs came out on top. They beat Ellis 30-20, and it was, like I said, a very competitive matchup, very back and forth. Ellis was really led by no other than Carson and Trenton Sharts, the Sharts brothers. Carson Sharts, the running back for the Railers, senior this year for them. He was really impressive to watch. And additionally, Trenton Sharts, the sophomore, was taking the snaps at quarterback for the Railers. And both of those guys were really impressive to really see their chemistry on the field. You could tell those two really have a connection, and it's really awesome to get to see those family bonds and ties on the field, because you can really tell when kids or players, so to speak, have been playing together for a long time. Baylor Bourne and Ben Byers were also very notable receivers for the Railers. Both of those guys were very productive for Ellis. For Quinter, freshman quarterback Easton Blackwell was extremely impressive to watch, and he battled really hard last week. You could just tell he was laying it all out there on the field. And in our post-game interview that we had with him, he really made some great points about the work they had put in the offseason to improve their team. And we saw last season when we got to cover Quinter, they struggled because of the lack of numbers on their team, and they really struggled on that side of it. And this season, you can tell they've made leaps and bounds in terms of improving their team. Cale Hargett as well was really one to keep an eye on in that game. Him and Easton Blackwell really had some great connections. Cale Hargett had a couple really crucial catches to secure the game. I got to speak with head coach Cody Corwin and additionally Easton Blackwell. So here's that interview.
On field after their big win against Ellis with quarterback Easton Blackwell for Quinter. Easton, how are you feeling after an electric game from start to finish?
Pretty good. I mean, it shows all the work that we put off in the weight room. Like last year, we ended our season like 1-8, and we put a lot of work in the weight room, and it shows. And these games like this is where it really comes into play.
Easton, you're new to the program, a freshman this year. How's it been transitioning from that junior high football to now moving into that high school football? What's the transition been like, and how supportive has this team been for you?
It's been pretty good. I mean, it's a big step, especially like coming in and playing quarterback as a freshman. But I mean, we got a really good class of freshmen out here. Just want to play some varsity football, I guess.
Well, Easton, congrats on the win. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Nope.
Thanks, Easton. On field after their win against Ellis, here with head coach Cody Corwin. Cody, a fantastic win for you guys. This meant a lot, obviously, a district matchup for both teams. How are you feeling after a great win?
Well, I mean, I'm not really sure how you put it into words. I mean, look, these kids are jacked up after the game. Just awesome district win. Give hats off to Ellis. What a great, well-coached team. Hard fought all the way to zeros on the clock.
Obviously, homecoming night for Ellis, atmosphere is always something you got to think about when you're playing a football game. Maybe not for the players to think about, but certainly plays into effect. What was the atmosphere here like tonight, and how did your kids handle it?
The kids battled adversity. We came out flat. We came back, had a few picks, and I mean, I've never played or coached here or played here in my career, so this was the first time. It was an absolute blast to play here. So.
Well, Coach, congrats on the win. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Nope. We're ready for next week. Got to be ready. So.
For sure. Thanks, Coach.
Well, thank you to both Cody Corwin and Ben Blackwell, and Easton Blackwell for speaking with me after the game. That was an excellent interview I got to have with both of them and gave me some really good insight into the culture of their team and what their outlook is for the rest of the season and years to come. Moving on to the high school sports section, Keisha Covered came out with their rankings, their football rankings for the state this week. Mays sits atop Class 6A, my alma mater. They moved to 6-0 after taking down their catty corner rivals, Mays South High School. And I say catty corner because it's really not cross town. It quite literally is catty corner. I mean, they are right down the road from Mays High School. It's always a fun matchup between the two. Mays really took care of business on that one. Wichita Northwest at number 2 in the 6A rankings. They sit at 5-1. Junction City sits at 4-2. They are 3rd in the rankings. Free State sits at number 4. They are 5-1. And then Olathe West moved from being not ranked to ranked this week in 6A. They are 5-1. Class 5A, St. Thomas Aquinas, as always, sits atop the rankings. They have moved very little this season, if at all. They're 5-1 to start the year. Great Bend sits at 6-0. They're number 2 in Class 5A. Hayes is at number 3. They're 5-1. They came off another win this week. St. James Academy sits at number 4. They moved up one spot this week. They're 5-1. Mill Valley sits at 4-2, and they're 5th in Class 5A. Class 4A, Cape and Mount Carmel sits at number 1. They moved to 6-0. Eudora moved from number 3. They're now at number 2. They sit at 5-1. Bishop Miege moved up to number 2. They moved down to number 3. They sit at 2-4. Wamego moved down to number 4, and up to number 4, and they're 4-2. And then Mulvane went from not ranked to ranked this week. They're 5-1. In Class 3A, of course, Andale sits atop the rankings. It's really interesting. Class 3A didn't move at all from last week. 6-0 in the top 5 of Class 3A. Class 3A state playoffs is going to be a dogfight. Andale, Hayden, Holcomb, Rock Creek, and Hugoton is the order for that. All of them sit at 6-0. That'll be a fun one to keep an eye on. Class 2A, Southeast of Saline stays at number 1. They are at 6-0. Nemaha Central sits at number 2. They're 6-0. Osage City sits at number 3 at 6-0. And then Hoisington sits at number 4 at 5-0. And Sabetha sits at number 5 at 5-1. Class 1A, we really kind of stayed the same. Most of the teams staying undefeated in the top 5. Jackson Heights sits at number 1 at 6-0. St. Mary's Colgan sits at number 2 at 6-0. Sterling at 6-0 at number 3. Rossville at number 4 at 5-1. And Smith Center stays undefeated in 5th place at 6-0. 8-man Division I is where we had a lot more movement this week. South Central stays at number 1. They didn't move. They sit at 5-0. Central Plains sits at number 2 now. They moved up from number 3. We'll get to them in just a little bit. They sit at 5-1. They've got a big matchup this week against El Saline, and then against Little River. And then Waukene moved up from a number 4 up to number 3. They keep their undefeated streak alive. They're at 6-0. Linden went from not ranked to ranked. They're number 4 in the 8-man Division I rankings now. And then El Saline now sits at number 5 at 5-1. 8-man Division II. Nothing changed from last week, but there's a big but. There's a very big matchup this week in 8-man Division II. Axtell and Hanover, number 1 and number 3 team in 8-man Division II, going head-to-head in a very important clash in the rankings. That one will be one to keep an eye on. I'm very excited to see how that one turns out. Axtell, of course, keeping their undefeated streak alive. So far, 4.5 consecutive seasons with undefeated records and state champions. I mean, that is just incredible from them. They put together quite a dynasty there at Axtell. And then, of course, number 2, Victoria. We'll keep an eye on them. They've got a big matchup next week against Hodgman County. They sit at 6-0. Hanover at number 3. They sit at 6-0. Hodgman County sits at number 4. They're at 6-0. And then Hutchinson Central Christian sits at number 5 at 6-0. We move to 6-man. 6-man, Weskin sits atop the rankings. They're 5-1. Cunningham sits at number 2 at 5-1. South Barber at number 3. They moved up from number 4 this week at 5-1. Ingalls moved down 1 spot to the number 4 slot. They're 5-1. And Teskett also moved down a spot to number 5. They're 6-0. Cross country really is getting ready to wrap up their season, so we don't have a whole lot about them right now, but next week we'll have a lot on them. Regionals is coming right around the corner, and we've got a lot of cross country action. It'll be action-packed here in the next couple weeks. Volleyball this week. I was kind of doing a little bit of research around the area around Kansas about volleyball and just kind of was looking at some teams that were very notable this year. Ellinwood High School sits at 35-0 at the time of recording this show. They have a game this Tuesday that they will be playing. And I had the opportunity to sit down with Ellinwood volleyball head coach Greg Maxwell in a very nice interview with him. A big thank you to him. Here is that interview.
I'm Eli Blankinship with Tiger Media Network, here with head coach from Ellinwood for their volleyball team, Coach Greg Maxwell. Your program hasn't had a losing season since 2015. I know you've been coaching for 7 or 8 years now over there. What has it taken to really create a winning culture for your program, and what has that experience been like?
Early on, it was mentality. It was just teaching the girls that if you put in the time and were taught the skills properly, you could trust the foundation of who you were as an athlete, and then believing in yourself and your teammates, and just expecting to win when you step on the court. So we put the time in, and that gave them that confidence. And once they started to have success, obviously it just continues to build.
And you talk about mentality. You coach 3 different sports at Ellinwood, and so how do those experiences from those other sports kind of translate to your success as a volleyball coach? And what are some of those things that you maybe look to apply in different sports, I would say?
Volleyball really was very new to me. I had never been around the sport, and when I had daughters, they fell in love with it. And I was a football coach at that time, so when I decided I was going to make the switch from football to volleyball, you understand that the coaching philosophy and principles have to stay the same, and it doesn't matter if you're coaching boys or girls or athletes. You treat them like, you know, athletes that want to compete and want to win. So I brought that football mentality, and obviously there's a tough side to that of making them understand that you're going to have to work, and you're going to have to deal with some things that are tough, and whether it be in the weight room or in the court, that there are challenges and walls and barriers you have to break through. And for the mental side, we push them in practice extremely hard in drills that are completion drills. And if they don't get it done, we don't leave. Or sometimes there's consequences, whether it be conditioning, things like that. But I'm a bigger proponent of just, we got to get it done at the level we expect. And that's the standard we've set for that gym. And the girls understand that. And as they've matured and as they've understood the level of the state competition, they understand why we do that now.
Yeah, and you talked about your daughters was kind of part of the reason that got you into volleyball. Is that really what helped you kind of, I guess, become, maybe not become, but help you break into the world of volleyball?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I would have never probably had any connection to volleyball. And I feel bad. I was very ignorant to what volleyball is about. And now that I'm involved, it's a phenomenal sport. I love being around it. I had never coached girls, so it was a lot of new things for me. And I was very humble coming in because I had no idea. Like I said, I knew how to win and I knew how to coach kids, but I didn't know a thing about the sport. So there was a ton of people that helped me get going early on and taught me the basics, which, when I say basics, it was ground level because I didn't have a clue. And as I've learned it, it's been a lot of fun. And I've said this before, when you learn a sport, as an adult, I think you understand it better because I've had to learn every aspect. Where this other sports that I played in high school or in college when I played college football, I think you kind of have a preconceived mindset of what you like about a certain, aspect, whether it be running an offense or a defense or whatever. And you're not as open to things. So I've been open to learning this sport from the start, from anyone who can give me advice or suggestions, or, we go to camps and talk to college coaches. And I want to keep modern with this game and keep our kids, pushing that issue of staying relevant.
Yeah, for sure. So what has been, I guess, the biggest surprise for you then, since when you were fairly new to everything, what has been the most like, I know some people have things with certain sports where they're like, wow, like I had no idea like that, or that rule never made sense to me. Well, I guess what was that for you?
Oh, early on, there was definitely some, officiating things that I had to learn and understand and grasp. And, I had a very simple mindset on it. And when I first started, my girls knew the game at a much higher level than I did, especially some of the specifics of it. And, we'd kind of lightheartedly joke about things, or even sometimes they'd be like, we can't do that, coach. And I'm like, well, why not? And I had never played it. So I defer to them a lot. And I say, I know what I'm asking here, but I've never been out there. I've never done this. So be open with me. And a lot of times their answers, I'll have a counter to. I'm like, well, but if we could do that, couldn't we be, and so as my teams have gotten better and more confident, that they don't really close any doors anymore, and they're more open-minded to things. My daughter coaches up at Kearney. And she's a volleyball assistant up there, and she laughs because she knows a lot of our practices and drills are more probably football oriented, and the terminology I use is more football related. And she just laughs. She's like, that's not volleyball. But, she also played for me, so she knows it is volleyball, but it just has a different sound a lot of times.
Sure. Um, well, one thing that I've kind of always liked to ask coaches or players that play at smaller and or just public schools in general is, what does it take, at least from your perspective as a coach, to prepare your team to compete against some of those higher level schools in terms of like size, and then additionally you look at some private schools that are able to recruit. From your perspective, you can't recruit, so what does it take to really set your team apart from some of those other teams?
A lot of it in volleyball for us has been that club experience. Once that was my first introduction to volleyball. Basically, was rec, and then I started a club that we had here in town, and they left, and I brought it in because I saw the value was extremely high. And our girls have seen a lot of high level volleyball, whether it be at the national level or, traveling around the state during the winter in club tournaments. And that's been a huge part of giving them confidence that, when you go to Denver and you're playing in, a huge venue, it's not as intimidating going to someone's opposing gym, but like you said, a lot of it's based on who we have, our personnel. There's been matchups in the past that we couldn't overcome, and this year we've been fortunate. We seem to be on the plus side of most matchups, and we're mature this year. I've had to start a freshman every year as a head coach, and this is the first year I haven't had to rely on freshmen. We've got an excellent freshman class, but I tell them every day how happy I am I don't have to play them, and then they don't love to hear that, but it's just a fact that we are mature this year, and that has made a huge difference in just stepping on the court, expecting to win. We had a couple set losses in some big matches, and I was thrilled with how they responded and came out of those. A couple of them we lost second set, and they didn't waver, they never panicked, and they came out and took care of business, knowing they were the better team and there were things that they needed to do differently to have a better outcome.
Yeah, for sure. I guess a couple more. I got only a couple more questions for you. Number
Sure.
one would be, I know a lot of teams will do things over the summer for fall sports, and like whether that's when you're in the weight room or team bonding or whatever. I noticed that your guys' team did a little bit of team bonding this summer. What did you see that helps your team to really have that experience and that camaraderie that you try to build over the summer?
Oh, tremendously. Our summers are huge for us, and I've been a big proponent to our girls about you have to invest at that moment, because that's when it's risk free. You can do everything you want. You can experiment with offenses. You can try different things. I get to experiment with personnel with no risk involved. That commitment of everyone in attendance, everyone doing the thing that they're expected to do, is extremely important. And we can't make it mandatory, but like I always say, that someone in the state is setting the standard, and the state champion is setting the standard. And if you're not here, then you're either getting left behind by the state champion or a teammate. And thankfully, we've had some competition within our team for position and playing time, and that's obviously helped a ton as well. And yeah, we've kind of modeled our summer after success we've had in the past, and I think it's allowed us to have a fast start in the fall, and that's been huge, because we have a pretty heavy loaded schedule early on. And now the key is, and I've talked to some championship coaches, it's like, how do we continue to not start fast and then, plateau and continue to build from that?
For sure. Well, I got one more final question. This one, I don't know if this one you might need to think on this one a little bit. You might not. I'm not sure, but you have over 200 wins in your career as a head coach. What has been your favorite memory?
Okay. I've kind of had this, it changes as you go. Obviously, it used to be, we had just a huge win at state a couple years ago where we were playing at like 11:30, and we hadn't won a pool round, and we finally won that third match, and it qualified us for championship Saturday, which that was one of the most exciting volleyball games I've been involved in. Prior to that, we've had some phenomenal league battles. When I first got going, we expected to dominate the league, and it was anything but dominate. We won, and we won 9 state or straight league championships and have a phenomenal winning streak going. But those early ones were really, really battles. And so there's been some really cool ones there. And then obviously just, anytime you qualify for state, you're doing this for the kids, and you want the best for these kids. And there's nothing better than watching these kids just absolutely, enjoy that exhilaration of accomplishment. And obviously that's my goal for moving forward, is to continue to grow. It used to start with league, and then, then to grow to sub-state. And now we feel we've arrived on that state scene that we can expect to go in there and look to accomplish that ultimate goal and truly enjoy that accomplishment of the highest level at what we do.
For sure. Thank you so much, Coach, and good luck on the rest of the season.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Moving on to our area game of the week reveal. I am really excited for this one. Little River at Central Plains, and you can see me smiling from ear to ear. Central Plains is a team I have been wanting to cover all season long. I've had my eyes on them since the very beginning of the season when they played Victoria in a very close one. That is their only loss of the season. for Central Plains. Little River is coming off a tough loss against El Saline. El Saline took them down 22-20. And that was Little River's very first loss of the season. Central Plains, on the other hand, their only loss this season came to Victoria by just 2 points, 22-20, and they are second in 8-man Division I. So both of these teams are going head-to-head in what is going to be a very important 8-man Division I clash, district clash at that, here late in the season, and I am very excited. Be sure to tune in this Friday. Coverage will begin at 6:30 p.m. live from Central Plains. Until then, I'm Eli Blankinship, and this has been Tiger Media Network's Area Game of the Week preview show.